Happy New Year, Eagles fans. What a year 2022 has been for this Philadelphia franchise. There's a lot at stake today, a chance to wrap up the NFC East and the #1 seed in the NFC with a victory over the New Orleans Saints. Coming off a Christmas Eve loss back home in front of a fired-up home crowd, there's a lot to play for in Week 17. Welcome to the Kickoff Show, presented by Little Caesars. I'm Ella DiGiovanni, joined by Fran Duffy. It's home sweet home, Fran. It's been a month since the Eagles have played at Lincoln Financial Field.
And now they return with a lot to play for. Win, and they are in. This is a huge game here for this Eagles team. If they can win here today, that cements the #1 seed going into the playoffs.
It's a case of controlling your own destiny. All they have to do is win today. You don't have to worry about what anybody else across the league in the NFC East and the NFC as a whole is doing. You win today, and the playoffs are coming through Philadelphia.
And a gentle reminder to our fans that are watching at home, those games in September, in October, and in early November that you say, oh, that was an ugly win, you're down after a victory. Those wins are so important because the more of those you could stack up, now you get to this point in the season and you are just controlling your own destiny. You're not worried about what other teams are doing. This team here this season, a great case of exactly that.
And it's a little fun when Week 17 and Week 18 still carry a lot of weight across the National Football League. Now, this Eagles offense has 400 or more total yards in 5 straight games. They've been very productive, Fran, especially the past few weeks. Now, the past 2 weeks, however, 7 turnovers, which is very uncharacteristic of this Eagles football team. But they're going to look for a bounce back today in that area. How do you see them really getting back on track in that regard?
Well, it's just focusing in on the details because all of those turnovers last week, 4 of them in total, were all due to different reasons. And those are small issues that can be corrected. But going up against a team like the Dallas Cowboys on the road, you are not going to beat a good team like that when you turn it over 4 times. That is going to be the case today against a feisty New Orleans defense. And when you look at Dennis Allen, who is the head coach, he had been the defensive coordinator of this team for a long time. The identity of this defense is very difficult to deal with. They play a lot of man coverage on 3rd down. They like to bring a lot of speed on the field, and they run a lot of different games up front. We'll get into that a little bit later, but the threat of this defense is real. They get Marshawn Lattimore back in the lineup here in this game. I think ultimately you look at this defense, it's going to be a big test here for this Eagles group led by Gardner Minshew.
Nick Sirianni said this week a Dennis Allen defense is a good defense. He was pulling out film when he was with the Chargers, when they had joint practices against Dennis Allen defenses. You know he had all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted before preparing for the Saints defense here today. Now from the quarterback position, it'll be Gardner Minshew under center for a 2nd straight week in place of Jalen Hurts, who's still nursing that shoulder injury. Now, Gardner Minshew last week on the road in Dallas, Christmas Eve, he threw for 355 yards. He played a good football game, Fran. Now it's another week. He had a full week of preparation where he's going to go out there today and hopefully win the NFC East for the Eagles.
No doubt. And he was a part of 3 of those 4 turnovers a week ago, right? You had the 2 interceptions, but then also the fumbled exchange between he and Boston Scott. So plenty to clean up from Gardner Minshew. But one thing I really liked, Ella, the ball got out of his hands so fast. So credit to Gardner for being extremely decisive against that Dallas Cowboys rush, but also give a lot of credit to the Eagles coaching staff. A very well-designed game plan going up against that rush, which had the fastest time to pressure in the entire NFL going into that game. So you knew to protect Gardner Minshew, you had to get the ball out fast. That's exactly what they did. Very, very efficient performance, very explosive performance against the Cowboys defense.
Minshew will be going up against a top 10 defense in the Saints where they thrive in the passing game. So this could be a big opportunity for Miles Sanders and this Eagles rushing attack. Last year when the Eagles faced the Saints week 11, the Saints defense was #1 in rush defense. Well, the Eagles said, well, this is what we're good at. So they rushed for over 200 yards. Jalen Hurts had a career day, 3 rushing touchdowns, and that's what worked for them. Now, this is a different Saints defense in that regard. They really target the passing game. So could it be a big game for the rush game here, Fran?
Well, I think there would definitely be opportunity for guys like Kenny Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott to create some big plays. Now, you mentioned the last 2 years, they've gone up against this Saints defense. It feels like we play this team every single year. And in those 2 games, the Saints came in as the #1 run defense in basically every single metric. Now, the Eagles had an ace in the hole in those games. Jalen Hurts. He had outstanding performances on the ground. We all remember that game-clinching run with the little dead leg in the hole that Jalen Hurts was able to break off for a touchdown last year against this team. Well, not having Jalen Hurts in this game, that means that you have got to find other ways to get explosive runs from Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenny Gainwell. I think the Eagles are up to the task here in this game.
Now, we've seen DeVonta Smith surge the past few weeks. He hit 1,000 yards. He's riding back-to-back 100-plus yard games. He's making big-time plays. We saw that toe drag swag down in Dallas last Saturday. What about him has really opened things up for this Eagles offense?
Well, I think it's just the fact that he can come out and prove that he is a threat to be dealt with if you are an opposing defense. And if you are a team like the Cowboys, where you have Trayvon Diggs, or if you're like the Saints, Marshawn Lattimore returns to the lineup for the first time in a few months here for this Saints defense here in this game. If you have a top flight corner, you have to really pick your poison. Are you going to spend that corner on A.J. Brown, or are you going to spend him on DeVonta Smith? Because wherever you go, the Eagles have the ability to attack the other way. Now, the Saints also have some young, aggressive corners that have gotten a lot of time over these last couple of months with Lattimore out. Paulson Adebo and Alante Taylor. The Eagles will have a nice matchup here. A lot of aggressive man coverage here from this Saints team, especially on third down. DeVonta, he leads this offense now in third down targets. That is something to watch. On those money downs, keep an eye on number 6, who is guarding him from that Saints defense.
For the majority of the season, you see an A.J. Brown game, you see a DeVonta Smith game, but the past few weeks, it's been a very whole game from both of those wide receivers as they've kind of decided and tried to figure out and learn how both of them fit together in this offense. Now for A.J. Brown, he's 105 yards away from breaking Mike Quick's single-season team record of 1,409 yards he set in 1983. Here's what Brown had to say about being on the cusp of history.
I'd be lying to say it don't mean anything, but I'm trying to channel my focus in other directions. You know, me doing what I have to do, making plays for my team on critical downs, will handle all the records and all the other type of stuff. So, you know, it's a blessing to even be that close, you know, to his records.
Fran, you and I were hanging out with Quick earlier in the week. What did he say about A.J. Brown with the opportunity to do this today, break his record?
Yeah, I asked him, I said, Mike, what do you think? Are you rooting for him to break it? Do you want to hold on to that one? He said, you know what? I've had that sucker for 30 years. It's time for somebody else to have that record. So he will be rooting for A.J. Brown to get, 105 yards he needs?
105, yep.
He'll be rooting for it.
Keep checking your box scores at home, Eagles fans, as the game goes on here today. It's the second week Dallas Goedert is back in the fold. I'm curious to see his connection with Gardner Minshew grow this week. We know he was Minshew's guy last year against the Jets when Minshew took the place of Jalen Hurts. Last week he did get a few touches down in Dallas as he made his return from injury. So what do you think his role will be today against the Saints?
I think we'll probably see a little bit more from number 88 in this game as opposed to last week. 3 targets, all of them go for 20 yards. All 3 of them caught 4 first downs. So it was a nice debut there for Dallas Goedert, coming back into the Eagles offense, get back into the swing of things. It had been 5 games since he had been in the lineup. Well, now full-fledged part of this offense. I would expect you'll see plenty of number 88 in this game.
This week on Eagles Game Plan, tight ends coach Jason Michael talked about the return of Dallas Goedert for tape study with Fran Duffy.
It's anytime you get a great player like Dallas, just to add back into to what we're trying to do as a team, what we're trying to do offensively. It's obviously a great, for us as an offense. The thing about Dallas, he's just the leadership that he brings, and he's been able to do that, throughout even, in the 5-week stretch that he's not been in. But, just to be able to get him back out. I know he was antsy to get back out. And, it's great to see him come out and be able to produce and help us offensively and help this team.
Be sure to tune into Eagles Game Plan every week on all our Philadelphia Eagles channels, as well as NBC 10. Fran, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting next to me, but the way you've been able to incorporate these assistant coaches this year on Eagles Game Plan, they really take you behind the curtain, give you that behind-the-scenes view of how they put this product on the field every single week.
The assistants have been awesome this year. We've said it weekly here on this show, and I think one of my favorite nuggets from Jason Michael, he dove into it a little bit there, talking about Dallas's leadership, and he went on to talk about his impact on Grant Calcaterra and Jack Jack Stoll, two guys that, Stoll, he was primarily a blocker, not as much a pass catcher. Calcaterra was the opposite, more of a receiver than a blocker. But his wisdom for those two guys, hey, you've got to be able to contribute in both phases if you are going to be a multi-dimensional player in this offense, and if we are going to be a versatile offense. And when you watch a number of those plays that I broke down with Jason Michael, two of them were multiple tight end sets, 13 personnel, all three tight ends on the field. You can't run that effectively unless you have tight ends that can contribute in every way. The Eagles have that, and Jason Michael was sure to give a lot of credit to Dallas Goedert for his leadership and his mentorship of those two younger players.
As we bring in these offensive starters here, it's been an unfortunate week from an injury standpoint. Of course, Jalen Hurts is out again this week, Gardner Minshew taking his place. The big one to circle here, Eagles fans, Lane Johnson is out with an abdomen injury he suffered last week. There is no information on how long the Eagles will be without Lane Johnson. We're not going to sugarcoat it here. That is a massive loss for this Eagles offense. Of course, Jack Driscoll will be taking his place at right tackle. He has 14 starts in the National Football League, so he has some experience. He will be ready to go, but you can't say enough about the impact Lane Johnson has on this Eagles offense.
You and I can't sit here at this desk every week and say that Lane Johnson is the best tackle in the NFL and then say, oh yeah, well, it's not that big of a loss when he's out of the lineup, right? This is a huge loss for the Eagles for the foreseeable future. But that said, plenty of faith in Jeff Stoutland University to get guys like Jack Driscoll ready for this moment. Jack Driscoll has played plenty over the course of his career. He has proved to be more than competent, whether he's playing tackle, guard, left, right, doesn't matter. Well, I'm excited to see what Jack Driscoll brings to the table. Big matchup here against the Saints.
Driscoll talked to us this week in the locker room, and he shared what Jeff Stoutland, how he prepares every player to step in.
That's one thing I love about Stout is whether you're the first guy in the room or you're a backup or a practice squad guy, Stout will coach you hard and make sure that, he's holding you to that expectation. He's holding you to a high standard, which is one of the reasons why, he's one of the best coach in the business is because, having guys like Isaac, Lane, Kelsey in the room, he holds us all to that standard, and that's good. And it's, hard, it makes it, it's hard, but it makes us better players. And, that philosophy really helps in situations like this when you get thrown in that, you're ready, you've gotten all the reps, you've watched guys like, just for me to be able to watch Lane every time, the best tackle in football, just every time, has been really important for me.
You have to think down in New Orleans, they were keeping a close eye on this injury news all week. How do you think they prepared the defense, knowing they could be going up against a right tackle who is a lot less experienced than Lane Johnson?
Yeah, you had to be ready for all the different possibilities that the Eagles could put on the field here this afternoon. But with Jack Driscoll, remember, he's going to have a big matchup here against Cam Jordan, who has been one of the better pass rushers in football over the better part of his career over the last decade. And so Jack Driscoll, Cam Jordan, big matchup to watch. Remember his first start, Jack Driscoll, as a rookie. He had to step in week one. Late in the week, he found out Lane Johnson wasn't going to be able to go. He had to step in against Chase Young and that Washington defensive front. So, yeah, I think Jack Driscoll is going to be ready for the moment. I'm really anxious to see both of these tackles, Jack Driscoll and Jordan Mailata, going up against these New Orleans group of pass rushers. Marcus Davenport, he gets most of his reps against the left tackle. He leads their team in pressures.
Well, speaking of Jordan Mailata, after 4 long years, he reunited with his family on Christmas Day. They made the trip from Australia to Philadelphia. Mailata sat down with our Eagles entertainment crew this week to talk about what it will mean to have his biggest fans in the stands.
Parents coming to see me play this week. Pretty excited. This will be the first time they see me play in person. The last 4 years they've been seeing me on the TV. And so, yeah, pretty excited, and it's a pretty special day for me. So, yeah, finally did it. Finally was able to bring them over.
And our cameras got Mailata finding his family on the sidelines earlier today. This is what it's all about, Fran. I asked him in the locker room this week. I said, 5 years ago, when you were moving to the United States to start preparing for the NFL, you were just a boy. They were just saying goodbye to their son. Now they get here to Philadelphia, and he told me that his dad was in for a shock when they went to the grocery store and people knew who his son was. He said, Dad, this is who I am now. This is a city. They love their team. They love their players. This is my life now here in the United States.
And how awesome was that to see the interaction there between Jeff Stoutland and Jordan Mailata's parents. And again, that coach-player relationship, it's not just Jeff Stoutland with his offensive linemen, but across the roster, across the depth chart, the connectivity between the coaching staff and the players. It's one of the hallmarks of Nick Sirianni's, what he preaches to his staff, and that was evidence there. Just awesome to be able to see that interaction. And again, check out Eagles Unscripted, because that is where you really get the sense of the human element of this team, of this sport. It is must-watch TV for all Eagles fans everywhere.
Our Eagles entertainment crew crushes it every single week to produce you these high-quality films to really take a look at this Eagles journey throughout the 2022 season. Now, last week, this Eagles defense allowed a season-high 40 points. They're looking for a bounce back here today, Fran. Do you think that's the big storyline headed into this game?
Yeah, I mean, they got to get off the field on third down, right? And that's a big reason why the Dallas Cowboys were able to put up 40 points. You and Ike and I talked about that last week in the postgame show right afterwards and said, look, you go drive by drive by drive where Dallas was able to put points on the board, and you could point to a moment on third down or fourth down where there was a penalty, a blown coverage, a miscommunication, a missed tackle, where you say, yeah, if this goes differently, the Eagles get off the field and the Dallas Cowboys don't get points. You cannot let the Saints stay in this game, get off the field on third down. That is going to be one of the big themes here for this defense in this matchup.
As we bring in these defensive starters here, there was a familiar face also on the sidelines earlier today, and that's Eagles legend Malcolm Jenkins in the house. Now, this is interesting for Malcolm because he played both for the Saints, but he won a Super Bowl here in Philadelphia, and he's stuck around the area. But he's a legend here, Fran.
No question. Still technically a Saint by retire. They have his rights right now since he retired a Saint. But I think when you look at Malcolm Jenkins, the impact he made for both of these franchises, no surprise that he's out here on the sideline today.
Absolutely. As we bring in these defensive starters now, unfortunately, the injury bug hit this side of the football as well. Avonte Maddox was ruled out with a toe injury. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he had a chance to be activated off of IR this week, but they did not open his practice window as he's been dealing with that lacerated kidney injury. So it's still thin at that safety position for Marcus Epps, Reed Blankenship, Josiah Scott. It's going to be a big day for them. They really got to step up in this chance.
Yeah, going up against a New Orleans Saints offense that, I know that there's a lot of questions about this group, but they have been very efficient. They've moved the ball down the field. They've created explosive plays. You have got to be able to, again, get off the field. Don't allow New Orleans to stay in this game, because you've got explosive playmakers on that side of the ball, guys that can change the game any given play.
Now let's go to the defensive line. We're looking at the guy right there, Brandon Graham. The one storyline from this D-line is sacks. They're chasing NFL records, team records. There are 4 players with 9+ sacks. They have been incredible. The past 4 games, they've had 6+ team sacks. If I was Andy Dalton today, I would be on my heels.
Well, it's been a strength of the Saints offense, what they've done to protect Andy Dalton and whoever has been under center for this team. They are in the top 6 or 7 of basically every pass protection metric in football. So they've done a really nice job at protecting the quarterback, but if you're going up against this Eagles defensive front, you cannot take that for granted, because they are going to put that to the test. You mentioned that stat of 4 guys with 9 sacks. They are on the brink of being the first team in NFL history to have 4 players with double-digit sacks. You see that name at the bottom of that list. Only 1 guy left to go here, Ella.
The 34-year-old vet chasing 10 sacks for the first time in his career. We talked to him this week at his locker. Here's what Brandon Graham had to say about the defense closing in on a sack record.
That'll mean a lot, because, man, we going down in history for that. But like I said, it ain't no pressure, man. I'm just out here having fun. I'm trying to enjoy the day, because, boy, next thing you know, it'll be season over. Hopefully we got that ring, then we be talking real good. But, I'm just trying to enjoy the moment, and hopefully that moment come where I can do my dance, because I got a nice little dance for him. I break that record. Yeah, I got something planned. Thanks to Robert Quinn, because he broke a record last year, and he did something that was so cold against the Giants. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that.
When we got the sound from the locker room this week, of course, our producer, Melissa Higgins, she had to go digging. She found that celebration Robert Quinn did last year when he was with the Bears against the Giants. Here it is. So this is what you got to look out for today if BG cracks that number 10 sack. He's been preparing for this one, Fred.
He's getting prepared, and obviously, look, that is a good celebration. No question about it. But I like old reliable. I just want to see the Brandon Graham sack celebration that we have known to love over the course of his career here in Philadelphia. But we'll see what happens if he is able to get that double-digit number.
Well, it's a perfect time to remind fans to get your votes in for Brandon Graham for Walter Payton Man of the Year. Head to Twitter and use the hashtag WPMOY challenge, followed by Graham or his handle at BrandonGraham55. Now, thanks to our social team who's been responsible for these amazing graphics all season long, we were informed just a few days ago that Brandon Graham was number 4 in votes. We checked in with them again this morning. He remains at number 4, so Eagles fans, get your votes in. Now this linebacking crew, Fran, they have their hands full today. Between Alvin Kamara, he has 20-plus carries in each of the last 2 games. And then, of course, the threat of Taysom Hill. You kind of never know what to expect from Hill.
You never know what to expect when he's out there on the field because there are reps. And he had a touchdown last week, Ella, where there were 6 or 7 offensive linemen on the field. There were 3 tight ends and a running back. And it's like, if you're a defense, you don't know how to prepare for all the different personnel groupings that they put on your disposal. It's not like going up against the Cowboys where it's like, okay, if it's Ezekiel Elliott and 11 personnel, these are the 3 runs that are at your disposal. If it's Tony Pollard, here are the 3 runs that are at your disposal. No, when you have Taysom Hill back there in the backfield, sometimes Andy Dalton's on the field. Other times, he's not on the field. Is Kamara back there with him? Is he split out wide? Who else is out there? 1 out of every 3 plays over the last month, they've had 6 offensive linemen on the field. Ella, I've never seen anything like that. It is insane what they are doing from a personnel grouping standpoint. And all that does, it just puts a lot of stress on your pre-snap communication as a defense because you have to be ready. Run, pass, inside, outside, deep ball, quick game, screen game, all the things in between. You've got to be ready with all of the different things that they do. And again, Alvin Kamara, he is a matchup problem for linebackers in the pass game. Not as much with screens. They're down at the bottom of the list in the screen game, but they love him on those little Texas routes, those wheel routes out of the backfield. That will be a matchup to watch here with Kaiser White and TJ Edwards.
Now, last week, this defense allowed the most passing yards to a quarterback all season. Very uncharacteristic of this group. So a lot of eyes are going to be on Darius Slay and James Bradbury, how they can kind of get back on track, really feed off of the D-line, pressuring Andy Dalton up front to make a play in the secondary.
And that's the thing is if you can pressure Andy Dalton, you can get to him and force him to make turnovers. That has not been something that he has done throughout his career, but this season it's been a little bit out of character for him that he has given the ball to the opposing defense. So if that pressure is able to get home, well, that's where Slay and Bradbury could take advantage. One lineup note to take advantage or to take note of though here, Ella. Chris Olave, the rookie top 10 pick, back in the lineup. He missed the last 2 games for this Saints team. He is back here for New Orleans. That is one to watch because he has been a high volume threat. He's attacked all 3 levels. He has really been a home run pick for this team in the top 10.
940 yards before he got injured this year. So Slay and Bradbury, they're no strangers to high-performing wide receivers, especially this season. But Chris Olave presents a different type of threat.
He's an outstanding route runner, and again, he's got the speed to take the top off. But now that's where the strength of Slay and Bradbury comes into play, right? They've been so good at locking up those outside receivers. The Saints mostly have kept Olave to the outside, not as much in the slot.
All right, Fran, we're going unit by unit, breaking it all down. QB1 is breaking down the team right now on the football field. What are your 3 things to watch today?
Well, the number one thing is going to be communication. And there were several breakdowns from a communication standpoint last week, especially on 3rd down. That defense has to make sure things are buttoned up against the Saints. We talked about all the different stress they can put on you as a unit. Then you go to the next level. I think the other thing to watch, along the defensive line, interior pressure. Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, who's really come on strong the last month. Sue, Linval, Jordan Davis, that whole group going up against the interior 3 for the Saints. They are going to be down 2 of their starting guards here in this game, going up against a former Eagle and Josh Andrews. That is something to watch here. The Eagles could take advantage on the inside here in this game. And then going offensively, we talked about the opportunity for Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. This Saints defense not as stout against the run as what we've seen in years past. There might be some opportunity there for those running backs on the ground.
It was interesting to see Gardner Minshew breaking the team down. I saw a lot of the guys laughing. I would die to know what he was saying, but the way that they bought in and rallied around him in this time where you have Jalen Hurts stringing together an MVP caliber season, the way this team is able to just jump back in and adjust to whoever's calling the plays has been quite remarkable.
And that's the thing is when you have a backup quarterback that can come in and be that kind of lightning rod for an offense and say, hey, you know what? I haven't had the reins of this offense the whole year, but have faith in me, have trust in me. That's something you want from your backup quarterback.
And there's a lot of pressure today. They have a lot to win today. Hassan Reddick earlier this week, he told me that they don't think about implications when they're going into a game like this. They're going to stick to who they are, how they've been playing, and hopefully that just results in a win.
It's that one game at a time mentality, 1 week at a time mentality, and that's where this team has preached all season long. When they were stretching 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, they had the ability to say 1 game at a time. You're going to keep that going here this week.
Well, for the first time in 4 weeks, we're going to head over to beautiful Lincoln Financial Field, where Eagles insider Dave Spadaro joins us. Dave, Happy New Year. We're going to get right into it here. The Eagles have 7 turnovers the last 2 weeks, most in the NFL over that span. What has the offense done to improve in that area ahead of today's game?
Yeah, Ella, great to be home, and Happy New Year to you and to everyone. And it's certainly an area that the Eagles have emphasized all week, just as they did after the loss to Washington. Those two games, it's no coincidence, 4 giveaways in both of those games, both Eagles losses, offense not finishing drives. And so how do you really work on it on a short week? Obviously, you talk about it in meetings, you emphasize it with your conversations, you have drills during practice. We saw during the week the Eagles working on ball security more. And I think it also comes down to players on the field trying to do too much. That's a no-no. Just take what the play is there to give you. And I think coaches also make sure you're putting players in the right position. And if Gardner Minshew is not able to make that throw or that receiver, if you don't want Quez Watkins in the middle of the field, then resist calling those kind of plays. Now, what's interesting here today is that New Orleans is a defense that just doesn't take the football away. So it probably works in the Eagles' favor, but we boil it down to this. This offense has been virtually unstoppable all season except for the turnovers. So today we'll find out just how much the emphasis during the week matters on game day.
Dave, I didn't think you could surpass your Justin Timberlake costume on Halloween, but I like the 2023 spirit today. Well, on the other side of the football, it's a similar story. The defense has just 3 takeaways in the last 4 games. Of course, they've been without C.J. Gardner-Johnson. What adjustments do you see this unit making to start winning the turnover battle again?
You know, Ella, what's so interesting about it is, as you guys have talked about, the Eagles have had so much pressure on the quarterback, and they've gotten home so much, and you kind of correlate that to takeaways, but that hasn't been the case. They've certainly missed the athletic ability of both Avonte Maddox and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So that's an area where you really can't replace it. You just have to make sure you don't give up the big play. Today there's a concern, obviously, with Olave playing and some of the speed the Saints have. Don't give up that big play. You're also playing a quarterback, Andy Dalton, who's thrown 1 interception in the last 5 games. So he doesn't make a lot of mistakes that way. Last week, that interception was in the snow in Cleveland. Philadelphia believes that these things come in bunches, and JG is always preaching takeaway, takeaway, takeaway. We'll see if today the Eagles can get a little hot and take some footballs away and really make it a little bit easier for Gardner Minshew and the offense. But missing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, missing Avonte Maddox, that takes away a lot of athletic ability in the Eagles secondary, and that's been a factor, even with all the pressure up front.
Well, that was your Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro. He will also join us live in the postgame show immediately following the game. Fran, also I want to point out he was wearing a light jacket out there. It is a beautiful day here in Philadelphia.
It's tough to imagine that it was like minus 18 out there here in Philadelphia just last week, and we've had, 2 50, 60-degree days in the last 3.
It's going to be wild at the link today, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
Well, this week's Social Spotlight, presented by Ponley Hockey, players were asked their New Year's resolutions.
What's your New Year's resolution? I'm gonna break 70. Hey, that's your boy birthday! New Year's resolution, be the best I can be at everything I do, baby.
Keep getting better, one day at a time. Keep doing what we've been doing. Stay consistent.
Yeah. I like the Gilly. You heard what he said. Keep going, let's go, keep going.
Hey, I'm done. What's your New Year's?
See, I'm gonna start clowning you boys for 365 and motivating them 365. If I get a 1% better, I know 2% will be better tomorrow.
I like it. I like it.
The Kickoff Show is delivered by Little Caesars, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Order online during the Pizza pregame and get it delivered or pick up in store in the Pizza Portal. Pizza. All right, Fran, your first Rico Extra Point of 2023. What do you got for us?
Well, we talked earlier in the show about this identity of the Dennis Allen defense and all the stress that they can put on you as an offense, especially on 3rd down, where they really incorporate your running backs. They make your running backs pass protect. Here's the challenge here that you are going to get from the Saints defense. Because last week, go back, the Dallas Cowboys, they run more stunts than anybody in the NFL. But it's your typical stunt, your ETs, your TE, 2-man games where your offensive linemen have to communicate with each other. Guard, center, guard, tackle, guard. Everybody's got to work together. But this week against the Saints, what they love to do, Ella, they love to bring those linebackers, especially Demario Davis, up on the line of scrimmage and run stunts with the linebacker and a defensive tackle. tackle. What that typically means now is that your running back, who's going to account for the linebacker and pass protection more often than not, they have to work in tandem with your guard, with your tackle, with your center. That is not typical. That is not something that those guys do on a weekly basis. And so now Kenny Gainwell, who is typically the third down back for this Eagles offense, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, they have got to make sure their communication is buttoned up with Isaac Seumalo, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, everybody along that offensive front. We talked about the communication on defense. Well, the communication on offense, very important here against Dennis Allen's defense. They especially put that stress on you on third down.
That'll do it for us here on the Kickoff Show. Join us on the postgame show immediately following the game. Hopefully, we'll be talking about your NFC East champions. As always, Ike Reese will join us in studio to break it all down. Can the Eagles overcome injury this week, win the East, and lock up that #1 seed? It's home sweet home, Eagles fans. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the game, and go Birds.